Morning, Rabbi Zajac.
Morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Chandra.
Morning.
Krega getting all of the strings over here. This
Strings, the wires.
mamish, especially Sunday. Okay, let's see if this works. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning the final chapter of Hilchos Mikvos, Perek Yud Aleph, which is also the final chapter of the whole Sefer Tara, and a big mazel tov to everyone that's being Messiah. And we're going to, God willing, begin the next Sefer, the 11th Sefer Nizikin, beginning with Hilchos Niskei Momin, Trakim, Aleph, and Beis. Let us begin with Hilchos Mikvos, Perek Yud Aleph. So the Rambam in this final chapter is going to focus all about Netilas Yodayim. We're going to learn about the term Mayim Rishonim, Mayim Shniyim, not Mayim Achronim. As we'll see, according to the Rambam, that they are necessary Letruma. They're not necessary L'chulim. We're going to learn the rule that you cannot wash part of your hand at a time. You have to wash the entirety of the hand. We'll speak out what's the hand. I know that Rambam uses the word Perek, and because of the Rambam's not defining clearly what that means, you have different opinions. Bishitas Rambam, we'll get to that when we learn it inside. And Kedarkei B'Kodesh, the Rambam himself will be making a beautiful siyum, closing not only the whole topic of mikvos, but the entire Sefer Tara. Perek Achad Asar has 12 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. Says the Rambam Kvar Be'arnu, and the Rambam is referring back to Hilchos Avos Hatumos, both Perek Ches and Perek Yud Beis, that Shenetilas Yodayim, that the washing of the hands, we touched already the word Netila. But Alter Rebbe writes, one of the meanings of the word Netila comes from the word Natla. Natla is Aramaic for the typical keli that people would use to wash their hands. A natla had in it the amount of a revius, and being that you have to begin with that amount, as we'll learn in this chapter, we call it netilas yodayim. So that netilas yodayim, and whenever netila is not enough, but you actually have to immerse your hands, not immersing of the body. That's mikvah. As we learned already, that lakachim, wherever we need to have netilas yodayim, chulin, litruma. For that, we need to have tfilas yodayim. All of this is only medivrei soifrim, because according to the Torah law, either the person is tahor or the person is tamei. And when the person is tamei, you have to go to the mikveh. You have to immerse the entire body. The concept of tumas yodayim, that they are shniyim, b'chlal is midrabanan, right? The sugya and Shabbos, the shmeina asar davar, and the yodayim shetzrichos tefila. When hands need to be toiveled, emad bilanois and elo b'mikvah kasher. If you need tefillah, you need to have a proper mikvah. Sheyesh by arbaim sa'am. In other words, shebemakim sheha'adam toivel by dafkin, such a mikvah with all of the laws and rules that we learned above. That is where kalim and yodayim, they need to have the same standard for you to have a halachically effective tefillah toivel. If all you need is only netilas yodayim, im hitbilam b'mei mikvam, right, then to hide him. If you do toivel your hands in a mikvah, you're good. So this is the irony, that when you do tefillah, the standard that you need for the body, you need for your hands. When you do netilas yodayim, like let's go, one of the main rabbinic Rambam problems with the mikvah is mayim she'uvim. The whole netilas yodayim is mayim she'uvim. In other words, when netila is enough, you don't have to take the mayim from a mikvah. You don't need that. You can do you gather water in a keli. Actually, what you need dafka for netilas yodayim is these two rules. Number one, you have to pour the water from a keli. for it to be an effective netilas yadayim. And number two, the water should be poured in a way that we call it koyach adam. And as we learned more details in Hilchos Brachos. So that's the first intro. Notice when you have to have tfilas yadayim, you have to travel it in a kosher mikvah. When you're doing netilas yadayim, the rules are now you can't have waters that are tamei, right? That's why we learned yesterday over Shabbos, right? Megavoyin. Because whenever we are able to say that the mayim at least are not tamei, then they're good. Netilas yadayim. What do you need to do? You have to make them into she'uvim, dafke, right? And then you have to pour it on your hands b'koyach halacha base. However, kol ha'chaitzes v'tfila, chaitzes b'yadayim. Whether you're toiveling, whether you're making netila, as we mentioned, that if you have a certain type of flowing mud, the Rambam spoke up, we learned this yesterday, that if cows were to bend down and to drink from it, that means that it's taka muddy, but it's very liquidy. That is oila l'shir haraviyas, just like it counts towards the 40 psalm, that counts towards the minimum amount to start out with, which is the reviyas. Another rule, guys, these are the big rules. You have to rub your hands together. Our minig Chabad is actually after we actually throw water 3 times on each hand. We're going to get to that in a moment. We retain in the left hand a little bit of water. We make the bracha. Don't forget that the rule generally is that a bracha, birchas ha-mitzvahs, even though it's a derabanan. So what? We make a bracha prior to fulfilling a mitzvah derabanan. Is brachas over la'asiyasam, even though when it comes to netilas yadayim, we argue this is one of the exceptions. Since anyways you're going from a state of tumah to a state of tara, you might as well make the bracha in the state of tara. I get that, but still to the yoytze, the over la'asiyasam, based on this rule that kol hanoitel yod tzarach lefashreish, so the rubbing is part of the mitzvah. Beautiful. Wash your hands. Leave some water. Our minig is in the left hand. You make the bracha al netilas yadayim, and then you rub from that water on your right hand. So at least you made the bracha prior to the shivshul. Great. Halacha gimel. Now, it's very important just to what the Rambam is implying, let me just say it out by heart, is that when you're washing your hands for chulin, it suffices to throw water once on each hand. That water will be called mayim rishonim. When people hear mayim rishonim, more people are familiar with mayim achronim. Mayim rishonim before you eat, mayim achronim before you bench. There's what we will call now mayim sheniyim. Mayim sheniyim is something that we actually do always, plus. But let's go with the Rambam. L'chulin, 1 and 1. For truma, after you washed your hands once, mayim rishonim removes tumas yodayim, but the mayim themselves become tamei. And now you want to remove the impure mayim. How do you remove the impure one? Now you can say, just dry it with a towel. No, you throw water a second time. The second waters wash off the first waters. I just want to add now once that one of the insights that I think it was the Rabbi Rashab, who our minig is that even l'chulin we wash 3 times, is because taka the first 2 times, even l'chulin, we go beyond what the Rambam says. Once to be metahir the yad, the other time is to be metahir, to wash away the waters, to wash away waters that are impure. In other words, you are throwing water surmeira, and as Hasidim, we don't want to live only with surmeira. The third throw, you're already pure. The waters are already not, the bad waters are not here. But now I want to add the tahara. So the third throw is going machayel al chayel from one good place to a better place. But let's come back over here. Mayim d'shreinim is once, mayim shenim is the second throw of water. Halacha gimel hanoitel yod shtei yod of litruma. Sarech lachzer b'litel pam shnim b'mayim shnim. You have to throw water again a second time on each hand. Kedei lo hasar mayim shal gavayad. And then Rambam explains, the first throw of water, which is the takanas chachamim of netilas yodayim, the heimanikroim, we are going to refer to them as mayim rishonim. Why is that? Those waters now the waters are tamei because they have contact with your hand, not tuma strong enough for them to be metama your hands again. It's not ein l'davar soif, but the waters are tamei. Now, therefore, importantly, they're not going to be metama your hands. But lefikachim nafal kikar shel truma l'toich hamayim shenatal behem yadav tchila. Let's say you washed your hands in a basin, and a bread of truma fell in there. Those breads will become tamei. Okay. But the whole point of the second waters is that when you throw water a second time on each hand, it halachically overwhelms and washes away those mayim that became tamei. The mayim themselves, the mayim sheniyim, are no longer tamei, and therefore, if there has contact with the kikar shel truma in it, the im natal rishonim ushnim b'makam echad, and the nafal sham kikar shel truma, we don't say bittul. No, if they're all mixed together, we say nitma. The sum total of the waters are tamei, and they impart tuma to truma, not a lesser rishonim. And after you washed your hands the first time, and only after you removed it, you washed your hand the second time. Wow. Now, guys, to appreciate this, the Rambam is expecting for us to remember the following: that kavana l'chulin is not needed, even though it's better to have kavana always. But for truma, you have to have kavana. So if you have to have kavana, if I washed my hands one time and then I realized, oops, there was a Band-Aid on my hand. Okay? I removed the Band-Aid and I washed it again, but my kavana was, this is really the first time. That's good. That's good. But if my kavana was, this is only the second time. Second time, as we'll see, you don't have to begin with the same amount of water. There are certain leniencies regarding mayim shniyim. You have to have kavana. If when you threw the water the second time, your kavana was only as mayim shniyim, if you didn't have the right kavana for mayim rishonim, it's called kareach mikan v'kareach mikan. It's not good. It's not good for anything. Your hands are tummy the way they were. She'ena mayim shniyim atarim el anishim and mayim rishonim lagav yodov. Givaldik. Halacha dalid. Hayodayim mistamois. Right? Umistaharois. What amount of the hand must be washed, because that amount of the hand became impure. So the Rambam, like the Mishnah, remains cryptic, which is challenging. Adapere. If you remember when we learned in the Gemara, we learned a whole machloikas what that means, adapere. And the accepted opinion, Bishitas Rabbeinu, Bishitas Rambam, even though some minority argues, is the pedek means until what we call in English the wrist, and not adapedek, where the fingers touch the palm, which would be the uppermost knuckles. Not that. The way Taika we wash our hands, all the way until the wrist. Ketza. Not al eser yishayim adapedek. So now you remove tumas yodayim. Now those mayims are tamei. V'not al hamayim ashtim chutz lepedek. And now, if you wash the waters, yakir chutz lepedek means not only chutz lepedek. It went beyond the pedek, which, by the way, is a good thing. When we wash our hands, now that we paskin, it has to be until the wrist. Washing it less than that is not good. We go to Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, but most of us, what do? We go beyond. The beyond is good, but there's a problem with beyond. There's always a problem with excess. What's the problem?
With a use of water?
Yeah, we'll get to it in a moment. When the Rambam is Masud. So if you threw the waters the second time and they also went beyond the wrist, now if you'll notice when people wash their hands, if you'll notice they keep their hands facing up. Now you'll know why. Because when my hands are up, when I threw the waters, even if the waters went beyond my wrist, as long as they are more or less up until I dried my hands, those waters are never going to trickle back down. If they will trickle back down, now I got myself a problem. Why is that? Because the mayim sheniyim are tohoidim, as we just mentioned. We don't say that in the mayim sheniyim there's some of the mayim arishonim, but that's what we're getting to. If not, alas arishonim v'hashniyim chutz lepedek. If a person was, was good, you threw a lot of water. And even the mayim rishonim also went chutz lepedek. Now there's a mixture of waters. And now the waters, if they're going to come back into your hand, guys, nitmas yadoi. Upa. Why nitmas yadoi? Because shahamayim harishonim shechutz lepedek nitmu machmas yadoi. That's clear. Yahal kop yakir. And the rule is ve'ein hamayim hashniyim mitarim mayim shechutz lepedek. That's the rule. So the mayim harishonim were never washed away halachically. Even though physically you can argue, you're kidding, there's mayim shniyim there. And now that lafi shechazru hamayim shechutz lepedek liyadoi timua, you were metame your hands. Oy gewalt. And therefore, my friends, the Rambam is not implying don't wash your hands beyond the wrist. I would say that it's always better to wash more than to wash less. But you have to take precautions. You have to be careful in the position of your hands prior to you drying them. Halacha 8. Not all said Hashem liyodei achas. And v'nimlach v'not l'sashnim l'shtei yadav. In other words, just understand, guys. We learned to say, we learned to Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch not that long ago. You can wash your hands at the same time together. I know that you cannot do it; someone could do it for you. But just to know, forget about the alternating, the repeating. If I were to keep both of my hands together, one throw of water would be good. And that's exactly the case. Someone else is washing my hands here. I gave out one hand. He threw water on one hand. Then there's a shortage of water. Why should I waste each one separately? I put my hands together. And they threw water the second time. He's just giving a scenario where one hand had water thrown in it for the second time, and the other hand only had water for the first time. And again, Latruma, we're saying when we have to be precautious that the mayim themselves are tamei unless another throw of water, mayim sheniyim, were thrown on top of it. So that's what happened. So then tameos, my hands remain tamei. How is that? Because shahashniyim, the second waters, mistamin, they acquire tuma, because when my hands are together, you understand what happened? My hands were together. So the machmas hayat shaloi nitla b'mayim rishonim, and now the chayzrin umitamen es hayad b'shniya. Now I want to say these words, guys. The mayim hashniyim, the mayim rishonim that you throw, before he added mayim sheniyim. We don't say that if I threw mayim rishonim, the mayim is tamei, my hand is right away tamei. If not, you can't wash your hands. So since there's no way out, even though when you throw water once, those waters are tamei, it's not metamei that hand. But the moment I'm putting two hands together, it will be metamei the other hand. So either throw water when you both of your hands together once and twice, or keep them separated once and twice. If you have water thrown on one hand once, and then you put them together, that's exactly what's going to happen. Because when you threw water the one time on the left hand, that mayim is tamei. It's not going to be metama the left hand, but it's going to be metama the right hand. So that's it. Gewalt. Where am I up to? Not but if you threw water the first time, both on both hands together, and then and then you threw the second time only on one hand. So far, so good. So the rule is that hand is tag, and the other hand has an itmayim to me, but the hand is not tummy. Not al yodei achas. If you only washed one hand, the shivshav v'chaberto. If you only washed one hand and then you rubbed it on the other, what's going to happen is, I washed only one hand, and then my hand touched the other hand. So first of all, my second hand is going to be metama the mayim, and then that mayim that had contact with the hand that was never washed is tamei enough to be metama the hand again. But if I'm gonna
If you pour that second water over the two hands together, wouldn't that just be like any time where if you just the first time, it's like the first washing.
I just said that if you keep both hands together for both times, you're good.
Reality is you need a third one. That's it.
No. If you put both hands together, then you're good.
I understand.
You're speaking about either the first pour was on one hand and then you put it together, or the other way around. Like, shit, now, if the rubbing of the hand is only, if I washed one hand, it's only a problem if I rubbed it on the other hand that was not washed. But if I rub it on my head, if I rub it on the wall, I'm tahor. You have to remember that in pure liquids, only in part tuma to hands. That was the whole thing that we learned. So we don't say, yeah, the mayim is tummy. I get it. I cleared it off my head. My head doesn't become tummy. This mayim only has the koyach to be metama yodai. Weiter. Well, we actually wash our hands Lubavitch 3 times. So we're good. Let's go weiter. If you were to wash your hand only once, and the towel would be toifeach al manas latviach, the mayim is tummy. And weiter. Halachava. Not l'shtayadav mishtifa achas. If you wash your hands with one washing, and we're speaking about the Chiddush, the Rambam is making another point. I went like this, whoever's seeing this. What happens if I go like this? As long as both of my hands are together, we don't say the mayim of one hand was matam of the other. That's important. Now, not only do we say that if the hands are together, many people, they had a lack of water. You can have 4 or 5 people washing their hands together, and their hands are on the side of the other, even one on top of the other. As long as the hands were together, when you threw one throw of water, all of the halachas you have on one hand goes on these hands. However, there's another detail that if I'm putting many hands together, if they're going to be very tight one on the other, like we learned about if I dunk you into the mikvah, if I didn't wash my hands prior, that's a chatzitza. Make sure there's no chatzitza. That they should hold their hands loose in order for the water to go around each of the hands. Another rule. We spoke this out on the intro. You can't wash part of the hands. Cannot wash part. You either throw it or don't throw it. I can't wash a little bit and dry that part and then wash on the other part. Doesn't work. Not al mixas yadai. And garnished. It's nothing. The whole hand, not the mind. The hands are to make a But hold on. Where do you draw the line? When I throw waters, could be I'm not throwing it at the same second. Could be I'm throwing water slowly and it's going on one part and then on the other part. So the line is that when the water reached any part of the hand, the other part of the hand is still so moist that if someone else were to touch it, it's called tefeach hamanas latviach. That's called one wash. Guys, that you cannot wash your hand partially only b'mayim harishonim, which is to remove Thomas Yadayim. But when you're throwing the water the second time, Rambam, Truma, and that second throw of water is not to be metahir Yadayim, but it's to wash away the mayim hatmeim. Here we do allow noitel mixas yodi v'chayzer v'moisav al mixasim. Halachiches shir hamayim shenoitel mehem tchila. Tchila means mayim harishonim. You have to begin with 1 revi'is l'chol adam. The Adam, l'shtei hayodayim. In other words, for every single person. Ein pachas mishir zeh. The Rambam is adding a detail over here. L'chol Adam, v'Adam, l'shtei hayodayim. So when we learned in Halacha Vav, Luchedi is saying that if I have 5 people that are putting their hands together, and I'm throwing the water once, if I understand correctly, you have to have 5 revi'is. Another leniency. You don't need to begin with 1 revi'is for every person's 2 hands. 2 people can begin from 1 revi'is. Or let's go further. If you have a keli, not a natla, which is the size of the natla was a revi'is, but you have double that amount, you can give it to 3 or 4 people. Now, guys, I don't think that Rambam means that if you have 1 loig, you can actually use it for 100 people. I don't think it means you have to refill it. Point is that you don't have to begin with that amount right away for the other people. Keep you when it runs out, fill it up again. That explains why in halacha zayin and halacha ches we're more lenient. Halacha tes you begin with the good waters and the nas and you added some mayim that are not good. It's still going to be okay. But listen, not so if you added mayim that are not kosher, okay, guys, we're not speaking about Danny Tuma water. Mayim that's not kosher. Nasan so, but not also. If you remember, by a mikvah, the Rambam was very lenient. Because if I have exactly 40 saw, then I add a saw of mayim she'ubim. You're good. And if I remove a saw of the total, still good. Even though you don't have any more 40 saw of mayim she'ubim. By netilas yadayim, we're more machmer. If I have the exact amount and I added some mayim psulim, so now I have a revius plus, I'm still good. But now, which means I now only have the revius, and I know that revius is not comprised only of mayim kshedim. You have in it a little bit of mayim psulim, that mixture. Now it's more chamor. Not like nosan som, they're not also. Halacha yud says that Rambam kolamayim hapsulim linatilas mayim rishonim. Any mayim that's possible. Again, we learned that, guys, in I think it was in Perek Shishi of Hilchos Brachos, Kachim Sulma Mayim Shniyim. They're not good for Mayim Shniyim. The whole kli she'ein loit l'memenu mayim arishonim, because the keli is not wholesome. Kachim loit l'memenu mayim shniyim. So the leniencies for Mayim Shniyim are only that which is mentioned in Zayin and Ches, and not more. Ucheshem shetzarech liyas mayim arishonim mikoyach adam kacha mayim ashniyim. Halacha Yud Aleph. Kvar biyanu bePerek Shishim Hilchos Brachos. Kol minei hamayim apsul netilas yadayim v'chsheidam. V'chol ha'kelim shenoitlim eladayim v'shein noitlim. And the Ezu Nesina that's called Mikoyach Noisin Uksheda, and what's called the Nesina Einu Mikoyach Noisin Upsula. So the Rambam doesn't have to repeat it here. V'chol oisam advarim shebe'anu shom netilas yadayim lapas chulin kachein letruma. And not more machmer for truma, let's say. Ucheshem shesafik. Why is that? As we learned over there, because suffix that abanon lekulam kachen letruma. We also apply the rule kol suffix yudayim tor. Now we're beginning the final halacha, which is the Rambam siyum. And as we say always, hadran halach means that we're not excited that we're leaving. We're excited that we're being Messiah, and we will definitely come back to learn Sefer Torah. So here we go, halacha yudbeis. Davar barur v'goli. Two expressions. Sha'atumais v'hataharois gzeiras hakosofein ve'ena midvarim shedatei shel odam achratoin. This is not determined by human intelligence. V'hareihem b'chlal hachuk. And v'chein atfilu men atumais b'chlal hachukim hu. In other words, it makes sense to a human being that water has a purifying power physically that I get. If my hands are dirty, I use water to wash it. But that water should be matayr tuma, that's also beyond human understanding. She'ena tuma tito itzoyam, that it should be removed b'mayim. Elo gzeiras hakosefi. Now v'hadover toli b'kavonas haleiv. Elo fika chamro chachamim tova b'lo yehuchzak ki'ilu lo yitoval. Now, guys, remember, the Rambam is not, we learned that for Chulin, the Diavad, you don't need to have Kavan. The Rambam is trying to make a point that, like the Kedarka B'Kodesh, let me just take a quick step back. There's a machlokes between Rab Shimon and Rab Yehuda, if Dorshinon Tama Dekra. The Rambam paskins, not like Rab Shimon, we're not Doirish Tama Dekra. But you have to understand something. Like the machlokes of Rab Shimon is, can you take collateral from a wealthy widow? From a wealthy widow. The Torah says, don't take collateral from a widow because you have to return it. And then people are going to see you going into the house of a woman that's not married. They're going to suspect. Yeah. So the Rab Shimon says that's you should not be. And therefore, if she's wealthy and al pi halacha, you don't have to return it every night, then you could take. And Rabbi Yehuda says, you can't darshan tam of the Kra. The Torah says, don't do something, and you're coming and telling me you can't do it here, but you can do it there. The Rambam Taka doesn't paskin like Rab Shimon. We don't modify halachos because of the reason. But the Rambam continue, God says something across the board. But to learn a Musar Haskell, which is something that we are so familiar with, we Hasidim of the Rebbe, always, what's the inner, you're not changing the halacha, you're trying to be inspired by something. That's what the Rambam is referring to over here. So on one hand, you can't understand it. On the other hand, understand it. Understand it and take to heart. And what are we trying to understand? The Rambam beautiful. That what? That going to the waters. How do the waters work? I don't know. One thing is for sure, guys. When I go under the water, there is no physical change in my body. Getting wet is not a physical change. And since I wanted for that to work, it works. So truma, you have to have kavanah. The Rambam is going to speak about the power of tshuva, that the power of tshuva works even before there is a change. Not to think, even though the tshuva shlema is that if the same opportunity came my way and I didn't do it. Before all that, I just resolved to get closer to God. Did anything change yet? Nothing. That kavana will make all the difference. Kiven shetav al tahar. When we acknowledge that our nefesh accumulated tumah, and we want to become pure from it. No, and again, not a tshuva shlema that the guy made a lifestyle change. Just the very resolution.
It was on the table, sweetie. It was facing up.
If you can go on mute, that would be amazing.
I apologize.
What's that? And listen to the beautiful words. That in itself, now the Rebbe teaches means, okay, I wanna get better, but that's not enough. You got to go to what's the mikvah? Being immersed in learning Torah. Being immersed in learning Torah means to learn 3 prakam Avraham a day and not 1 Perek. And that's what, in other words, to be overwhelmed with Torah. Now, no matter how tamei a person is, and no matter how much the Olam Hazeh can tell you, "Ooh, that's an addiction, you're trapped." No, the Rambam says, resolve to stop that and immerse yourself in Torah. That will be matayr you. It's God's power. God is going to throw on you, and that's what the Torah was given by God. When I am going to immerse myself in it, that's the pshat that God is throwing His pure waters, and I will become pure. Mikol to my seichem. Doesn't matter how shmutzik. Umikol gilulechem atayr eschem. Now, even though there's a girsa that concludes that Rambam wrote, I know many people that are using different Rambams don't have it, but we're going to go with the Rebbe considers that to be an authentic siyum of the Rambam, that Hashem berachim of harabim mikol chet v'aven v'ashma yitaharenu amen. And the Rebbe spoke about this on many occasions, that normally Messiah in B'toiv. And to speak about chet v'aven v'ashma, why did you have to speak about all these different levels of sin? Like it would have been just a nice conclusion. Atayed eschem. And the word is, and that will be a good intro also to the next sefer, that al pi Hasidus, Yud is a mispar of Kedusha, and as you have in Sefer Yetzirah in the beginning, Yud v'loy Teisha, v'lud v'loy Yachad Asa. 9/11 is Klipa. And here the Rambam, who was the one that organized the numbers of Parakim, the Rambam made Sefer Torah. Imagine, Hilchos Mikvoos have 11. What's this 11? 11 normally is associated with Klip. And I can say L'choira, the Rebbe was giving us an opening. The next Sefer, Nizikin, Klipa. Now that fits. Nizikin is like a Klipa. No. But the Rebbe writes other sources that you do find 11 in Kedusha, but it's a special type of Kedusha. You find this by the Ketores. What was unique in the Ketores is that one of the 11 ingredients, Moir, not only did it come from a Chaya Tameya, what do you find in the Beis HaMikdash from something unkosher? Only there, but it had a terrible smell. So why did they add it in? Now, when you add it in the other 10, it actually becomes a good smell. There's something called the sabcha. So there's 2 steps. One step is perishus, tara. That's beautiful. That's yud. But that's not the end game. The end game is to transform the oven, to transform the ashma. That you need the power of 11. It's after a person is matayah themselves, then they are able to go into this Meshugana world and to find the good spark in everything and elevate it all. So that's the ultimate Messiah b'toiv, that the goal of Tara first is for me to separate myself from all these crazy ideas. But after, God is going to bench me with Hatzlachem by resolving and by being immersed in Torah, then that's not the end game. The end game is now go into the world and figure out how to elevate the rest of the world. And that's the introduction to the Sefer Nezikin. It's Nezikin, but it's holy Nezikin. We're not learning about damages, mazikin. We're learning about the Torah's perspective on Nezikin, which is elevating all of the most destructive forces in the world. The Rambam, according to most versions, always begins the Sefer with the words B'Shem Hashem Kei Lo Olam. Again, if you don't have it in your Rambam, that's fine. And then the Rambam Kedarkoi will open up every Sefer. This is already the 11th Sefer, quoting a pasuk from Nevi'im Ksuvim. And a pasuk here is from Ksuvim, Hat libi el eid voisecha, direct my hearts to your testimonies. Va'al el batza, not to unjust gain. A lot of damages, mammon, is that people want to have gain. It was guilt. So no, you have to, Hashem is going to bench us with the ashirus, but it should be just and not unjust. So if I owe money, let me pay that money. And not to have what I might think is a bigger number in my account if it's unjust. That's the goal of this. Now, Sefer Nezikin, the Rambam, like the whole thing is beautiful. See, we spoke that in Mishnayos, right? You have Kachim and Taras. The Rambam has a whole different Sefer. The Rambam Sefer Kedusha was way before Taras. At least this name, right? There's 14 Sfarim in the Rambam. The Rabbeinu HaKadosh was decided everything in 6. At least this one shares a common name, like we had in Taras, Sefer Nezikin. Just in the Mishnayos, right? It's you have Nashim Nezikin, and then Kachim, and then Taras. Now, after Taras, we're going to Nezikin. And the way that I've explained, first you become pure. Don't think you have koyach to elevate the world. Elevate yourself. Now go back into the world and elevate the world. You need the power of 11 for that. The 10 and the 1. The 10 and the Kesef. So here we go. Hu Sefer Achad Asar, Hilchos of Chamesh, B'zeu Sidurim, Hilchos Niski Mammon, Hilchos Geneva, Hilchos Gizela Vaveda, Hilchos Choyvel Mazik, Hilchos Reitzeach Ushmiras HaNefesh, and we're going to begin with Hilchos Niski Mammon. The Rambam writes that in this series we have Bayesh B'Chlolin Arba. Chavra, I made a mistake. I want to go back. I want to push it. I didn't read the Siyum. I want to go back to Tara. I apologize for the recording, but Hashem will forgive me. It's interwoven anyway, so even better. So let's go back. Nigmar Sefer Asiri be'ezra shin dalad yud. Umiyan haprakim shel Sefer zeh meir barboim 144. Hilchos tumas meis chamisha ve'esem prakim. Hilchos paraduma chamisha asa prakim. Hilchos musaras shisha asa prakim. The Rambam wrote this. Hilchos matana mishkan b'moishev shloisha asa prakim. Hilchos sha'arav isatuma is esem prakim. Hilchos tumas eichlin shisha asa prakim. Hilchos kelim shmoina ve'esem prakim. Hilchos mikvayis achad asa prakim. Mazel tov. And now we begin again with Shem Hashem Kel Olam. And then let's go to Hilchos again. Niskei Mammon yesh b'chol arba mitzvahs hasev zel pratan. Din hashoir. Din hahever. Guys, heaven means here that my animal is grazing, right, in your property and damaging over there, as we'll see. The din of a boir and the din of be'eda, damages that are caused by fire. Ubir mitzvahs elo b'prakim elo, and chevra, let's gird our loins. We are beginning with the first chapter. So first of all, right, for people who went to yeshiva, right, arba avis nizikin, you guys love it. The Rambam, begins with the concept of there's avis nizikin and toldos nizikin. But the Rambam actually is going to, in this chapter, not in the beginning, speak about the shloisha avos b'shoy. Everything has a different seder. So we're going to focus more on what type of damages come from my ox. There you only have 3. We're going to learn here about avos and toldos. We're going to learn in this chapter about kam and muad. We're going to learn about the normal difference that if my animal is called kam and it damaged, as long as it is still a kam, I only have to pay chatzi nezek migufay. Masha'enkein, if my animal is already considered a muad, I gotta pay nezek shalom miyafa sheben achasav. We're going to learn be'ikir in this chapter of the location of the damage, and that's very consequential In other words, if you went into my backyard and my animal was mazik you, who asked you to be there? So we're going to focus a lot on that, and this chapter has to be well remembered to be able to go weiter. Today, we're learning Shloisha Prakim. We're going to learn Perek Beis. A lot of Perek Beis is predicated, and you're remembering these details of Chatzi Nezek, Nezek Shalom, and the Ikir is where did the damage happen? Did it happen with the Shus HaMazik? Did it happen with the Shus HaNizek? Or did it happen with the Shus HaRabim? Or a third party makes a big difference? Okay. Perek Aleph has 11. Everything is 11. 11 chapter, and here we go. And it has also 11 prakim. All connecting it to the Rebbe spoke about the 11 prakim in Mikvais. The Rebbe was wanting for us just to finish. Gave us an easy opening, like to make the goal. 11. Everything is 11. The Kavanah is to elevate all of the damaging forces in the world. Halacha. Kol nefesh chaya. Another, maybe a Hasidic Vertalan. So we learned by Netanya, we have the godly soul and we have the animal soul. Adam is the godly soul. My animal soul is the Nefesh Chaya. My Nefesh Abaham is that's B'Reshusei Shel Azam She'ezika. Who's responsible for that? The godly soul also had a failing. Or in the positive, that the kavana of the nefesh alikis is to elevate the animal soul. It has to take responsibility for it. Responsibility means that if I sin today, who failed? It's not just my animal failed. Adarabba, my animal was just an animal. My animal is just doing its natural animalistic thing. The failing is on the part of the godly. Or the way that Rebbe made us feel, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zebozen. So if another Yid is failing, I failed. You understand? We have to take responsibility. Beautiful. Kol nefesh chaya. She b'reshus shel adam. Now the alpi nigla. No, if I own an animal, my animal, I can't argue. I didn't damage. My animal damaged. Which is, by the way, the argument you make if my minor son damaged. Right? There's three that pigiyasim raz are cut, and we'll get to that later. There was a shul over here that some kid did a tremendous damage. And he asked me a shaila whether he has to pay. I told him by the letter of the law, you don't have to pay. You'd be a mention pay. But he followed the letter of the law. What did that rabbi do? He told that guy to come down here with the son. That was a great to come back. Understand? Okay, you deal with it. So by a cotton, you're not mechuyev. By an animal, you have to pay. With all the lumdas, right? The whole question: do you have to pay shaloi shamar? That's one way of looking at it. Or do you have to pay because your property here is considered an extension of you, which is what the Rambam is saying. And Shenema, Nishpatim, Ki Yigo, Eshor, Ish, Esher, Le'eyu, then, even though the Torah uses an example of an ox, Echad HaShoid, the Echad, Sha'ar, Behema, Chayev, O'oif, I don't care what type of animal you have, Le'diber HaKosov, Bishoir, Elabo, Hoivem. Here, the Hoivem now is your dog. Same Hoivem. Halacha base. Now, V'kama Mishalom. So based on the premise that I can't say it wasn't me, my animal is under my reshus, I'm chayiv to pay. How much? Like it's like if an animal ate your teven or amir, that's normal. Or if my animal did damage while it was walking in a normal way, that's going to be key. That's called, it's lachatchila amud. I know my animal does these things and it's prone to damage. Then the owner of the animal chayiv l'shalom nezek shalom, and he doesn't say if my animal is worth $1,000 and it did damage of $1 million. I cannot say you can only take the money from my animal if my animal doesn't cover. No, I'm chayiv, and not only am I responsible. Another detail: if it's going to be collected from property, it's going to be collected from the best of my properties. And the Torah writes that explicitly, Meitav Sadeo, Meitav Karma Yishalim. But the Im Shinsa, that's going to be the key. Kedarkoi, Shinui. If it did something that's not in its usual habit, and the example that the Torah gives is a domesticated ox goring, or a domesticated ox that bit, then for the first few times, until it becomes muchzak, that this is the habit, as we'll learn later, not today, about how many times does it have to happen. Chayv l'shalom chatzi nezek, only half, and another nuance, only miguf hamazik atzmai, only yakir miguf hamazik. The Rambam's going to give numbers. What do you want to ask?
What is from the best of my property? And the cap?
That's what my property means. That if you own real estate in Los Angeles and you own real estate in Selma, even though they both have a market value of $1 million, it's much easier for you to sell your house here than selling your house over there. So that makes this property be considered halachically better property. And you can't say, I'm giving you the value of what I owe you, but take it from there. No, the damaged party can collect it from the best of your properties. Let's go back. Shenemer, as it says, now we're going to see more of only migufay. Shenemer machros ashoy rachai v'chatzos chatzboy. The Rambam gives. We have to move. It's later. Ketzad shoyr shemamanim. My ox is worth. I'm the mazik here, right? It's worth one. Guys, a man is 100 zuz. Remember, man is 100, and shenagach your ox that's lachatchil only worth 20, and it killed it. The Rambam is adding another thing good to remember. First of all, did I damage 20? I did not damage 20. Because the victim is the one that has to deal with the carcass. The carcass has some value. So the example that Rambam is giving is that the carcass is worth 4, which means how much damage did I cause? 16. What's half of 16? 8. We're going to that. Now, here I have to pay shmoina. My ox is worth 100. So of course I'm going to pay you 8. The guys, if I want to give you money, no one is going to stop me from paying you cash. But if I don't want to give you money, you want to collect it from my property, you can only collect it from my ox. Now, you're not going to collect my whole ox. My ox is worth 20. I only owe you 8. So then my ox has to be sold, and from there you're going to get your 8. Therefore, lefikach, all right, let's go to where you're going to be limited. If I'm the mazik, if I only have a shor worth 20, and it cored your ox that's worth 200, let's go through the numbers. And again, I know we discount the carcass. The nevel is worth 100, which means how much damage did I do? I did 100 zuz damage, Yakir. How much is half of that? 50. My ox is only worth 20. Then I won't pay 50. You'll take my ox. And that's it. She's going to take my ox. And even if my ox is only worth a money or only worth a dinar. So now we got nezek shalom, chatzi nezek migufoy. Halacha dalet.
Why was talking about like better and worse? If you could only collect from the ox damage, who cares what field you have?
You don't. In other words, it's a big difference when you cannot collect from my nothing is leaned on the debt other than the animal of the mazik. Very unlike when there's nezek shalom, everything that I own is linked to it.
Got it.
And not only anything,
that is
only lean to that. Very good. Halacha dalet. We're using the word mu'ad. Now, literally, mu'ad means forewarned, which means the owner is ke'ilu forewarned. Hey, you better watch your animal because you know that it's prone to do it. And any act that's called a shinoi, like the Torah's example of an ox, a domesticated ox that either gored or bit, that is what we call a tam. And guys, wait until we're going to learn more details of how does the tam become a muad. Okay. Here, general, the Rambam is not going into numbers now. If you remember, there was a machlokes, is it 3 times and then the next time, is it the third time, 3 different days? All of that the Rambam is going to discuss later. Just the concept now in the beginning of the first chapter, that if something that used to be unusual, but im hurgal b'shinui pa'amim rabbi, the Rambam leaves it vague, then it changes. No, you begin as a tam, you don't end up as a tam. So there's something, the Rambam is going to paskin 3 times on 3 different days, but we'll get there later. Halacha 5. Chamisha maisim tamim yesh lebehema. Meaning, only if it repeated itself many times, then nasas muedas leisa mais. But it always begins as a tam. Number 1, not to gore, not ligoif. Ligoif means goring, not with the head, butting with any other part of his body. Not to bite, not to lie down on large utensils, nor to kick. That's the 5 tamim by a domesticated animal. In contrast, the tooth, shame, if my animal ate up your property, that's a muad. If while my animal was walking regularly, during its walking, it trampled on kalim, that's muad. And not only that, not only to kick it or to crush it, but even to lie down. An animal won't lie down on large kalim, unless you know that now it's doing so. But to lie down on small kalim, it's not machshav small kalim. But only tzaddikim, the nefesh alikis, gives value to pachim ketanim. The nefesh abahamis, everything excess, wasteful, works. Now there are certain types of animals that even if they are, so to say, domesticated, they halachically are never domesticated. And therefore, if you own such an animal, which you should not have, and they damaged, even if they damaged right away through negicha, through neshicha, through derisa, you're right away chayv nezek shalom. What animals halachically cannot be domesticated? The wolf, a lion, a bear, hanomer, machloikis. Let's tie, she teaches here. Nomen is a tiger and a barbaros is a leopard, and there are other opinions about that. Now, that is concerning anything that they did. A snake, benegeya biting, is also always a muad. Even if it became a ben tarbus. Halacha zayin. Kol muad nishalem. Here we go, guys. Kol muad nishalem ezek shalom yefrim nechas. Right? Klal upratu klal. This is important because everything is going to be based on this. The Rambam found it important to begin to repeat. Chol tam nishalem chatzin ezek neguf. Bababed varabamurim. Remember this. That's if the damage happened. And he's kasuhu behemto shobal abayis. Hare ze patur al hakoil. If I have a guard dog and you come into my property, or your property comes into my property, I'm completely exempt. You don't have a reshus. Then implying that if it was not to stay acher, we don't follow these rules. Meaning, number one, if it happened to reshus hamazik, I'm patur al hakoil. Now let's go further. What happens if it happened to reshus harabim? Halacha ches. Izik b'reshus harabim. That's different. Oy b'chatza she'en shmol shneim. Loy lamazik v'loy lenizik. Oy b'chatza fakir she'ishol shneim. They own it in partnership. Both. We have to go into this detail. Every one of the partners can leave their stuff, and everyone has the right to bring in their animals. The example is a valley. We're going to get into nuance in this soon. So like this, guys, you have to remember this. I'm talking to myself. The Rambam already said, Shein and Regel is muat mitchilasi. So if that happened over there, hareza patur, punt faket. Why patur? Because mepnei sheyesh lo reshus lahalach bikan. And everyone knows, everyone knows that an animal, while it's walking, will break the kelim kedarech hiluch. In other words, I'm not going to say we blame the victim. Why am I the aggressor? We both had the reshus to be here. You knew that other people are going to bring their animals there, so you should have watched over your stuff. Dafke because it's not unusual. Dafke because it's a muad, b'reshus hanizak. That is a reason why if it happened to the Reshus Shneim, the Reshus Harabim, I'm going to be completely potter. But im nakcha nakfa oirafzo oibayato noshcha im tamahi mishalem chatzi nezek. And more than that, and if my animal is a muad, we don't blame the victim because the victim didn't need to know that my animal is a muad. I needed to know that. Nezek shalom. Remember that. Halacha 9.
But Gemara, we learned before that when the dog was outside, remember when he pulled his teeth out?
We're gonna get to everything.
And that pregnant woman walked by and he still was higher.
We'll get to everything. We'll get to everything. We'll get to everything. Halacha 9. These are the klalim. Remember, in halacha ches, it's gavaldik. Anything that you're muad mitchila, you're potter. Anything that you're not a muad mitchila, even though you're now a muad, you're going to pay nezek shalom. Tam chatzi nezek. Halacha nine. Hoisa chatzi shol shnei miyuchedes lepedes. But if it's only designated for pedes, not lahachnis babahema. Yeah, that's different. And one of the partners brought him there by Amal did nezek. Ooh, that's already, you can't say the victim should have known. No, the victim didn't know any animal will be there. Chayiv. And you're chayiv even for shein and egel, which, as we said in halacha ches, if I would have reshus to bring my animal, I would be completely potter. But in other words, since only one shutev had reshus to bring in peidos, and I'll be chayiv afilu al hashem ba'al regel gavaldik halacha yud. Now, unlike the Rambam is an expert, not arba avis nezikin. The Rambam begins shloisha avis nezikin b'shoyv. Nu seder, his seder, which is keren shein regel. Avis implies that there are subsidiary damages that are in that category. So let's go. The tolda of keren, which is goring, is negifa, all right, neshicha, revitza, and beita. So let's go. You have budding, right? You remember, negifa means it's like goring, David, but not with the horns, with the body. He pushes with the body. Biting, lying on, and kicking. Told us Hashem, which we mentioned, is the ordinary an animal will be eating. The right of a chayiv nezek shalom is in nischakecha ba'koisel lahana asam. When an animal is scratching himself on a wall for its benefit, right? And behizika peidos b'chichuch, and while it was doing it, it ruined someone's merchandise. That's normal. Animals do that. If it's told to the shame. It's a normal thing. If it's soiled produce, told us that egel hizika begufa darachilucha, or I know regel, but what happens not with the tail? Same concept. Imizika besaara darachilucha, or shekishkisha bezinava to wag the tail. If that's the word, or if it damaged with its ukaf, or beperumbi yashabapia. No, I don't care if it's with a piece of metal in its mouth. Anything that it has with it, and as it damage with that, or bezuk shebat savaram, v'chein chamar shehizik b'masoy b'shas iluchay, or an egla hamoshecha shehizika b'shas meshichasa. Kol elu told us an egel hein, and therefore let's go back to halacha ches. If it happened to the Reshus Harabim Pturim, I know that everyone has the right to go with their animals. Everyone is going with animals with a saddle. People are going with animals with a bell. I know that. I cannot be. I'm a victim. I have my responsibility. And over Reshus HaNizik, since it's darkoi bekach min hakotza lakotza mishalom nezek shalom. And the final halacha in this first chapter, halacha Yud Aleph, kishkush abinazava, but it's kishkush rav she'ina darker tamid. Not every wagging of the tail is normal. And now, so what do we? Or if it shook its a male member and it did damage, potter, still potter. But there's a shaila about this in the Gemara. So as we do by all speakers, my money, now we're beginning money, so on one hand, the mazik can claim, no, you should have known. The nizek can say, no, I didn't know it's going to wag the tail so hard. So if you have the money, then tafas hanizek, then goiva chatzi nezek v'mashu tafas, because that's what we learned in halacha ches, that if it did something for which there is a tam and a muad, because it normally doesn't do it, then even though it was with a Reshus Harabim, there's chatzi nezek. Shezeh davar sofiku im elu told us hakeren, unusual, which yechai with a Reshus Harabim, tam or muad, or is it told us that egel shapater Allah with a Reshus Harabim kamei gevaldik. Now that we established a Pedic Aleph, now we're going to introduce one big topic in Pedic Beis with many applications of Halacha Aleph, and that's called the Halacha L'Moshe Sinai, the din of Tzeroidos. What will be the din of Tzeroidos? As we'll learn out, David, if my animal, while it's walking, it's walking, and it hit a little pebble, and the pebble in Yiddish had gespritzt. it flew and it did a damage. So the Torah halacha l'Moshe Sinai, you chayiv to pay chatzi nezek. Normally, when you hear the word chatzi nezek, migufay, by the time chatzi nezek miyafash ben achasav. That's a unique law about Soroidos. The Rambam in this chapter, also we're still in the beginning, will make it clear when do we view a financial money payment as mamoin versus knas, with many nafkaminas. The ikar is moida beknas pater. Moida b'mammon, if I go into your house, God forbid, and I steal your car, and I'm moida, I'm not pater to pay you back your car. I don't have to pay the knas, the kefil part. So we have to understand, if it's categorized as knas, then moida you'll be pater. If it's categorized halachically as mamain, hoida will do nothing. We're going to have another very big klal. Kol shetchilasi b'pshia, even if the soifai ba'oinus, it's viewed as an act of prishia, as we'll see. Now, when it comes to money, just to know, pshia and oinus normally don't make a difference. If I'm driving my car and ba'oinus gamud, I connect your car. Ba'oinus, my brakes failed. Even though I'm going to tell you it was an accident, that's because I don't want you to hurt me. But I'm chayiv, right? Just because it was an accident doesn't make a difference whether I'm chayiv to pay or not. Not always. If I didn't do the damage, if my property did the damage, so I should have watched it. There will be scenarios where it's an oinus. So we're going to get to Chilase v'Soifer b'Pshia. And like we mentioned, we're going to have many applications of the principles we learned in the first chapter, where if it was Darkoi Bekach, I'm Chayiv Nezek Sholim. Ain't Darkoi Bekach, then until I become a muat, I'm only Chayiv to pay Chatzi Nezek. And the final big rule, these are big rules in one little chapter, Bimazot, is Grama ben Izakin, whenever it's not considered direct, whenever it's considered causative, then I'm chayiv b'dina shamayim, but I'm pater b'dina adam. These are the big rules of this chapter. Perek Beis has 20 halachas. Let's go. Freilach halacha aleph zok the Rambam. Echad avois nizakin ve'echad hatuldos. Im hoyo ha'av muad. Automatically, all of the tuldos have a din of a muad. Ya yakir bas pshat muad. Nezek shalom. Mayafish ben chasav. Im hoyo tam tuldos of kamayim. Another rule. B'chol obviously zakin b'chol told they saying you should know mo'adin mitchilas and hein chutz nikeren vil told oisav shehem batchila tamin ad sheyoadu, as we learned in Perek Aleph. That's a good klal. Now halacha beis kol told the ka'af shalom. There is one exception. We just said all toldas are like the av. That's why they're called av and a tolda. There's one tolda that's different, and that is tzuroiros. As we spoke about in our intro, tzuroiros means my animal is walking. We said, Danny, that regel muad mitchilase. Regel chayiv nezek sholim. Tzuroiros chasi nezek. Hamenatzim, a pebble is going to spritz out from under the leg of my animal while it's walking. Afapi, that you can rightfully say it's a told of regel. And by the way, what's the din of a regel? Regel b'reshus harabim, what we learned in the previous chapter, Perek Aleph halacha ches. Regel b'reshus harabim poten miklum. I pay nothing. Upoten alei b'reshus harabim keregel. And a chanami, no, it remains a tulda. If it happened b'reshus harabim, I'm going to be poten. But the imizik b'reshus hanizak. What would be the din of regel, my friends? If my regel goes into your property and it damages your stuff, I'm chayiv nezek shalom. But if the pebble spritzed out from under the regel of my animal, tulda, near amashal min ayafa ben achasav, that yeah, because it's a regel shi'av, not migufay, but I only have to pay chatzi nezek. And that is, guys, that's a halacha l'Moshe Messina. Now it's very important. We already spoke on in the intro about knas. It's not a knas. Normally chatzi nezek is knas, and therefore, let's go. Moide beknas pater. Chatzi nezek of tzuroidos. Yafa bin achasav, a tulda the regel, the Torah says chatzi, but it's not a knas. Moida will not exempt you. Let's go back. Halacha ketzad behema shenichnas al chatzaran nizok, and v'holcha v'hoyitzunoides menatzim etachas raglev v'shivros hakelim yidin mishalem chatzi nezek bin hayafa sheben achasav. Now, what's the logic? If it's chatzi nezek, it should be migufay. No, and Bachlal told us like an ab says that it's not migufay. It's not a knas. Chatzi V'davar ze halacha mipi hakabala hi. Halacha dalet. Now the irony in the Rishus, guys, remember, regel b'Rishus Rabim is patur miklum. But guys, the pebbles went into the Rishus HaNizak. Aha. Now, v'shibros ha'kelim mishalom chatzi nezek. Because the damage happened in the Rishus HaNizak. Dorsalkli b'Rishus HaNizak, v'shibartoi. What am I chayv to pay for that, David? If my animal tramped on your keli, what am I chayv for that? Nezek sholem. But what happens if a piece of that shard spritzed and knacked something else? The nafal keli yacher v'shibroi and the rishon am shalom nezek shalom. That's the din. Anything that's darkoi bekach regel. I'm a muad. I'm chatzi b'Rishus HaNizak nezek shalom. But for the second keli, I only have to pay chatzi nezek. That's called tzoroidus. In other words, tzoroidus doesn't only mean a pebble. Let's go weiter. Allah chadalet. Hoysam Allah b'Rishus HaRabim. And uba'ata, and it kicked. It gave a kick. It kicked the ground, and it propelled stones. The Ezekiel b'Rishus HaRabim. The Ezekiel b'Rishus HaRabim. Here's where we say that's tzoroidus. So we said, and here we say it's told to the regel, Danny, that b'Rishus HaRabim am pater. But there's a machloikas about it. The im tafas hanizek chrivi hanezek. Now, what would be the revi hanezek? So let me go over here, guys. Take a look over here. Gavaldik, a good chazar of Bava Kama daf Yutes in footnote 1. Whoever has a chayenu, let's learn about this. The law in the subject in the Gemara is an unresolved question. Bava Kama 19. The question is whether kicking a stone, is it considered goring? If it would be goring, what's the din of goring? Keren, chatzi nezek. Then what would be the din over here? Chatzi. If we would give it a din of a tzoroidos, what's the din of tzoroidos? Chatzi. Tzoroidos of goring would be how much? A quarter. That's what you have to remember. Let's read it inside. Is it considered like goring for the kicking was done intentionally, in which case the owner would be liable for the damage caused in the public domain? And I know, guys, only chatzi nezek. I get that, but you have to pay. Or is it considered to be an ordinary instance of stones that were propelled? And the din is that tzoroidos b'Rishus HaRabim is completely patur. Now, hold on. Weiter. Even according to the logic that maintains that the owner is liable because it's connected to keren, but he'll only be liable to pay for a quarter of the sum total. Why? This figure is arrived with the following. When damage is caused by propelling stones, what halacha l'maishu misin I say, you only pay after half. Since the animal is a tam, you understand? So half means half of what you would have to pay. If it's a tulda of keren, it is still tzoroidus. And therefore, even if you're chayiv to pay a quarter. So the question in the Gemara is, are you chayiv to pay nothing, or are you chayiv to pay a quarter? And back inside Allah Chadalit, you don't pay anything. But if the nizak chapt the other side of the boya, which is the quarter, half of the keren, halacha vav, similar, same guys, the same concept. But if it kicked the earth, b'Rishus HaNizak, and it made a damage over there. So we say chayv l'shalom revi nezek because it's a shinoi. What's the word of a shinoi, Danny? So regel b'Rishus HaNizak is chayv to pay full nezek. You can argue that this is a shinoi, and then you have to pay a quarter. Or you can argue, why is it called a shinoi? That's your normal. That's a normal. It's not considered a shinoi, and then you have to pay chatzi. Let's read inside. We have time. Let's read inside footnote 2. This law is an extension of the question we had above. But since the damage took place in the private domain, the owner is zichar chayiv. The question is he liable to pay half of the damages for only? Is whether he's liable to pay for half of the damages or only a quarter. So if we're going to learn that kicking is called a shinoi, anytime you do a shinoi, David, you have to pay half half of half is a quarter. If it's not considered a shina, then you pay half. Okay, but no, it's walking in a place where it's always gonna be kicking and sending things flying. Still, lachatchila, we cannot force it more than the revia because it's still considered the shinoi shaloi kedarka. But on the other hand, if the nizak chatzi nezek, then he can argue that done in din lanafshay. I accept the other side of this question, and you have to give me half. And now that I have it, how much mechaver all of it? Right, halacha zay.
The question with the kicking is it considered part of goring, or is it considered the other option is what?
Regel. Very good. Gabaldik. Right.
Regel, this whole concept of time and rule doesn't apply. That's the idea.
Correct.
Whereas it's
Correct. No. One detail. Regel is chai voice nezek shalom, but tzeroiros is chatzi nezek. It's always tzeroiros. Is it half of the whole or half of the half? Beautiful.
there's no concept of muad if it's regel by tzveris. It'll always be half.
Always be half. Very good. Good. Halacha zay. Kol ha'mishalom nezek shalom. Shalem harei hatashlumin mamoin. That's the rule. It's categorized as because I'm compensating the loss that I caused, and therefore b'chayv l'shalom, just like kimishalom mechaverishim mamnu chayv l'shalom. However, kol ha'mishalom chatzi nezek harei hatashlumin knas. The very fact that the trade is not b'chayv me to give all the money, we consider even that with one exception. Chutz michatzi nezek shel tzeroiros. Really, it's an ego. It's tulda the ego, which is why you pay yafa ben achasel. And this who halacha k'may shabiyanu, and that's very important. Moide b'tzeroiros, you're going to have to pay. Halacha chesach kol ha'mishalom ma'shehizek harei zemamim. V'chol ha'mishalom yosed or pachos k'may tashlumi kefil lechatzi nezek. Again, with the exception of tzeroiros, harei yosed al keren, not the whole thing. Whatever you pay more than the keren, or any amount less than the keren, is called a knas, and therefore ve'ein chayavin knas ela al pi edim. You'll be potter, givaldik. Now, halacha 9. Tarnagoil that stuck his head inside a glass keli. Remember that? And it gave a geshrai, and it cracked the keli. We talk about b'shibroi. Then if there was food inside there, Mashalom chatzi nezek. Kachatzi nezek tzeroiros oy gewalt. Listen to what's going on over here. Look inside footnote 3. He says when an animal propels a stone, the stone causes damage. The damage is not caused directly by the animal's body. That's how we're going to classify tzeroiros, but indirectly by the power it generates. So similarly, when a rooster breaks the container by crowing, it's called indirectly. And even though normally you're potter or grama, you're chayv half. Amazing. Yes. Shekachu darkoi. That's very important. Darkoi, normally darkoi regel nezek sholim. Halacha l'meishim Sinai, indirect chatzi. That's the same thing. Im hayakeli reikon na mashuna. And then you pay chatzi nezek kol haknosis. So you're going to end up paying the same amount, but it's a big difference. Either you're going to pay it as mamain, so miyafish ben chasav, moida, you won't be potter, or it's considered a normal knas. Chatzi nezek dafka migufe. Halacha yud. V'chein sus shetzonat b'chamar shenor with their noise. V'shivat hakelim mishalem chatzi nezek in the period. And the Rambam writes hatanagoyle mu'adam lahalach kedarkam l'shav. However, on the tarnagoyle, and this chut that is normally not going to be there, it got wrapped around the keli and it broke it. Ooh. So here you only pay chatzi nezek dani tzeroiros. It's indirect. Adam means, guys, important. Adam means the owner. The owner is the one that did it. So he's chayv to pay for half. If it happened by itself, then habarakan was potter. You know why? Here is where we say almost. See? If the string belonged to someone else, it was not hefker. The owner of the chut has to pay chatzi nezek. How great is that? Where do you find such a thing? Like we're going to learn by a boy, as we'll get to that later. Halacha yudalef. If the owner hid the string, he didn't want his string to be wrapped around your chicken. And then everyone is an oinus. It's flying around from place to place, and while they're flying, they break chelim. Guys, remember this: if they break it with their wings, they pay nezek sholim. Why? That's regel. Just like regel, wings, same thing. Then you know what ruach is? The ruach of the wings is like the voice. Beautiful. Which means it's not kanas, it's chatzi nezek. Halacha yud if they're digging at a dough or at produce, and while they're digging at it, they soil it, they peck at it, they ruin it. Mishalem nezek shaloim darkom mekach. From now until almost the end of this pedic, that's the rule, guys. Darkom mekach regel. You get it? Hiziko ba'afra b'tzoy shalom b'fiyem. That's already chatzi nezek. That's a din of tzuroidos. Halacha yudalet. Hoy mechatetin, if they are pecking at a rope and they break the rope or they break the dli. The shalom nezek shalom. Why? Regel. The beak. That's darkoi. Darkoi regel. Who? Direct damage. That's when they have to pay nezek shalom. While they're eating it, they tear it. That's a din of shame. Darkoi bekach. Halacha tezvav. You get the gist. Right. Hakel of agdi. Shekavtzu mereish agag milmailo lamato. V'shibru asakelim mishalmim nezek sholim. That is called regel, my friends. Mepnei shehem will add them to jump down. Cheinim naflo v'ziku. If they fell down. 1 second. We said oino because why were they there? You should have made sure that your animals don't go to the roof. That's the klal, guys. Remember this from later. You, the owner, shouldn't have allowed your animal to go on the roof. Now, even though it got felled because a wind blew it off, your even though Sefer Ba'inus has a din of a pshia chayiv. Weiter. Halacha tezai. Kovtzum milmata l'mayla. That's already mishalom chatzi nezek. Why? Because this is shaloi darkoi. They don't jump up. Behemoths jump down. That's the behema. Beruach behema is attracted to earthiness. For a behema to go to ruchnias, that's the darky. But the opposite nisrach hakel, that type of jumping is normal. Is always normal. Darkoi. Beimil ma'ilo lamata, beimil mata l'maylo. Chayovim nezek shalom. The chein hatarnegol that jumps. I don't care up or down. That's normal. That's usual. Nishalom nezek shalom. Now a little bit about fire. Allah Yud Zayin. If I have a dog. You have a dog, someone has a dog, and they take a cake from a fire where the cake was cooking. So the cake is berenedig, and they bring it to a godish, they bring it to a grain heap. So like this, the dog, that's the way they do it. They move their food from here to there, they put it down and they begin eating it. Now this charara is burning the grain heap. Let's speak about all the different damages. If it places it down, and then the dog eats up the challah, and at the same time, the challah that was so hot lit fire. Heat like a sagadish. So here's the rule, guys. Regarding the cake itself, regarding the place in the grain heap that cake, that had underneath it some burning coal, burned, mishalom nezek shalom. Because a dog darkoi bekach, it takes from here and it puts it down. Hold on, but for the rest of the gadish. Soroidus. Chatzi nezek. I love it. But if it dragged it on the gadish, and as it's dragging, it's going and burning, then direct mishalom ala charara nezek shalom. I'm sorry, for the coal, you have to pay full damage. And the al makim hagacheles only chatzi nezek. Why, guys? Because dragging is shaloi kedarkoi. That's called the shinoi. And more than that. And for the rest of the gadish, we'll leave koyach for later. Grama, koyach, you're completely potter. We'll leave this for later.
Where the coal.
Yes. I'm rushing because it's late, and we're going to come back to these rules. Get used to these l'shainos. Allah yudches. Amed v'ramamurim b'sheshamar ba'al gechelas esishay. There's another party here, the owner. What about the guy who owns that whole thing? He did his part. My door came, I'm the only guilty party.
What's that split?
The guys, there's three parties here. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Okay? The dog belongs to Levi. Reuven takes Levi's dog and he races on the dog and the dog bites Shimon. Reuven instigated the dog that belongs to someone else incites. So the din is Reuven. Now we're beginning to learn the laws of Grama. Grama ben Isakim, that's the rule. In other words, the damage happened through Levi's dog, Danny. It happened through Levi's dog. Reuven doesn't own it. We began Pedic Aleph. That was the beginning of it all. Remember the rules of the Rambam. It was not Memoinoi Hizik. But he caused someone else's dog to damage. That's called Grama. Bedin HaShamayim is not to wait until you get to the heavens in Gan Eden. Bedin HaShamayim is if you want to make it good to God in Olam Haza, you pay the money. But a Beis Din cannot be Machriach you to pay the money. What about the owner of the dog? Ubal HaKelev Chayiv Chatzi Nezek Shekiven Shu Yodeya Sheim Shisas Kalbi Lahazik Noisheich Lo Yehoya Lo Yelahanicha. In other words, there's a certain lack of guarding. Guys, Shuki's looking at me. It could be there are exceptions. I mean, if Levi really locked up his dog, it's different. But he is now biting is Chatzi Nezek.
So he has to pay Chatzi Nezek. The Chayiv Shamayim, does that mean he has to actually be the owner also?
So then he's asking, like, will this guy get paid up time and a half? Will the Shimon get paid 1.5?
Or if he's paying, meaning does the
do
guy
you combine the monies?
Is he really Chayiv Shamayim for the full amount, meaning half and half?
I don't know. So I'm saying if the guy, I don't know if it means. I don't know. The she saw ba'atzma. Now 1 second. If the person set his own dog to bite his colleague, no. I'm sorry. No. If the dog bit me, then if I chapit with Levi's dog, and the dog bit me, balak elef patur. Shekola mashana bo'acha v'shino boi patur. In other words, the biting is a deviation. Me instigating your dog to bite me is a further deviation. Double shinoi patamiklum. Final halacha chaf. These are the big klalim. Shtei paris b'reshus harabim. And one of them is lying down, and one of them is walking. And the walker kicked the one that was laying down. The din is chatzi nezek. Not what we don't say regel. No, kicking is a tool of the cannon. Sha'af al pisha darka lahalacholeho. But ain't darka livoid ba. Was if it would have stepped on your cow.
That's regular.
That's regular b'reshus harabim pater miklum. Perikal v'alachaches. But since we consider kicking tool of the cannon.